Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's so good to be back in Washington State. I went to UW and I lived in Seattle for 5 wonderful years. I have so much love for the Pacific Northwest, so being able to come up here, right now I'm currently in the Bay Area, but being able to come back is so special to me, especially in the spring. And it's also wonderful to be back at Microsoft. I know that when I was an undergrad, Microsoft created so many opportunities for me to get mentorship, to come up here every month or so to meet with a mentor, to kind of get a perspective on like the security space, as well as to do consulting projects with the Microsoft Defending Democracy program. Which, can you hear me?
No, nobody in back.
No one can hear me. Is the microphone on? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll talk louder. So super excited to be back at Microsoft. So grateful for the mentorship that I received here. It helped me kind of get into the public interest technology and public interest cybersecurity space. And speaking of student opportunities, today we're going to talk about a very unique and impactful cyber volunteering program that is kind of taking root across the country, where students are getting the opportunity to help low-resourced organizations bolster up their cybersecurity through pro bono services. So before I tell you more, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Shannon Pierson. I work at the Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity at UC Berkeley. We are a policy incubator housed within UC Berkeley, and we produce policy research that helps illuminate the implications of emerging technologies for policymakers and for businesses. Our work focuses on a lot of different areas, fostering transparency and accountability in AI technologies. Also establishing like international norms in cyberspace for different state actors, as well as like developing public-private partnerships to increase our understanding of the cybersecurity challenges faced by public interest orgs, and to reallocate government resources to kind of closing those gaps. Before joining UC Berkeley, I spent a lot of time in trust and safety. I was really, where I kind of spent most of my time was helping social media platforms basically get the bad guys off of their platform, terrorist organizations, also state and nation state actors kind of trying to influence users on the platform. And I spent a stint at Meta. And prior to that, I've also spent a lot of time in like the DC policymaking space at a variety of different think tanks. So that's a little bit about me. At CLTC, where my work kind of focuses is on public interest cybersecurity and our public interest cybersecurity initiative. Basically, our mission in this initiative is to ensure that organizations that are serving the public good have access to cybersecurity, ensuring that they have the resources that they need to improve their cyber hygiene and to improve like their cyber readiness as they conduct their very important work to societies. So who are the public interest orgs that I'm actually talking about? Who do we focus on? We kind of focus on the organizations that are like the backbone, that build up the backbone of our communities and kind of blur into the background. So like the small utilities that make sure that the lights stay on or the water keeps running. The healthcare organizations and like the emergency medical services that ensure that you get life-saving care when you need it. Also, the nonprofits that provide like food, shelter, drug treatment, job opportunities to like the unhoused members of our communities. These organizations play indispensable roles in our societies, and but however, they don't often have the cybersecurity protections that they desperately need. They face the same kinds of threats as like businesses and other organizations. However, they have fewer resources to defend themselves, and when things go wrong, it can be particularly devastating for the people who rely on the services that they provide. So these organizations often operate on shoestring budgets. Most of the money that they have, they put into fulfilling their mission. Some don't even pay their employees. They operate off of like volunteers that are volunteering their time. So they definitely don't have a lot of money to invest in cybersecurity. This makes these organizations very easy targets for cyber criminals. They don't have a lot of IT or cybersecurity professionals like employed by them. So there's like oftentimes zero knowledge of how this could like be relevant to their organization. So they're often very vulnerable to scams, different kinds of cyber attacks, which can disrupt their operations for long periods of time. And there are just some organizations where downtime is simply not an option. So especially for like hospitals, if they experience like a cyber incident or like a ransomware attack, it can disrupt like their emergency services. So they may have to start like diverting ambulances to other hospitals, which results in like longer wait times and can have an impact on patient mortality. They also have to like cancel surgeries. They have to, it just results in delayed and degraded patient care. So there are huge implications for these organizations not having the resources that they need. So suffice it to say, there's an urgent need for cybersecurity support for these public interest organizations. So today I'm going to tell you about who is making a difference in this area. Fortunately, there is a growing number of universities and an army of students that are stepping up to help bridge this cybersecurity resource gap, and it's called cybersecurity clinics. So for those who are familiar, medical schools for decades have operated clinics for their students. So students who are preparing to become doctors offer pro bono services to people who can't afford healthcare so that they can receive treatment while they build up their skills and basically gain experience in their clinician discipline. So 5 years ago, Berkeley decided to take this clinic model and apply it to the field of cybersecurity. This was like the first of its kind, creating a cybersecurity help clinic. It had never been done before. And basically students are join a class and they provide pro bono cybersecurity services to different nonprofits. So the goal is twofold. It's to help students get experience working with clients and so that they can sell after graduation to help get jobs. And then also to help these organizations that don't have the budgets to afford this kind of hands-on assistance, help them have a better cybersecurity posture. So it's a 12-week course at UC Berkeley. For the first 6 weeks, students receive technical cybersecurity training. It's kind of a crash course because many of these students are coming from our Masters in Cybersecurity program, but also it involves people from public policy as well as political science. It's kind of multidisciplinary. So they undergo a big, they basically get a crash course in cybersecurity where they learn how to perform threat modeling. They learn how to design security training. And also the organizations that Berkeley focuses on, it's basically a lot of our students focus on doing open source intelligence research to gain information, to see what information is online about the people who work there. So they also learn how to hide online, how to cover their tracks, create aliases, all that kind of thing. So Citizen Clinic is what it's called at UC Berkeley. They focus on helping a particular type of nonprofit. So usually it's the organizations that are facing politically motivated threats. So they're engaged in work that is politically sensitive. They may be targeted by state and non-state actors that may be very powerful. So we've helped organizations that document war crimes, assist refugees who are fleeing. Also, notably, the students once helped a nonprofit that focused on investigating transnational human trafficking rings, and it just put in danger the volunteers there as they're kind of trying to investigate. So trying to figure out how to improve their cybersecurity practices to protect those individuals is very important. And one example that I'd like to highlight for you, just because it's very timely, is UC Berkeley has also helped women's reproductive rights organizations. So a group of students helped, I won't give a name just to preserve the privacy, but one of these organizations in the Berkeley area. This organization had received a lot of harassment, understandably so, a lot of threats of like data breaches of patient data, of individuals, of like the clinicians who work their data. Different kinds of medical records were being threatened to be released. And in this legal environment, that could be extremely, from a harassment perspective, but also from a legal perspective, could be very bad for the patients and also for the doctors who work there. So students basically met with the organizers of this group for 6 weeks in person and like virtual meetings, trying to understand their mission, first of all, also the assets that they have, their information management practices, and to basically provide tailored advice in the form of a report on how they can improve their cybersecurity posture. So the students identified like vulnerabilities in like how they in their data storage platform, and they like this organization didn't even have MFA implemented. So it's like very basic stuff, but it's also very helpful because this organization is not thinking about cybersecurity and needs a group of people to like kind of hold their hand, offer tailored advice for free to close those vulnerabilities. So thankfully, UC Berkeley is not the only organization doing this. We have kind of started a movement, started at UC Berkeley, but now it's kind of growing across the country. Different universities have gotten very excited about the opportunity to host a clinic. And it's just created some really interesting dynamic spaces, some cases student-led. So at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, this is probably my favorite clinic because it's entirely student-led. As you know, like small businesses often don't invest in cybersecurity, often are the targets of attacks, and it could be really financially devastating if they get hit, right? They could no longer be able to like run their business. So UNLV focuses on it, and they operate a year-long club. So it's not like a class, it's like a club that students are running, and this enables them to work with multiple clients over the course of many years and to slowly but surely build their experiences. Working with clients, understanding what the issues that they have. They kind of provide the same stuff that UC Berkeley provides in its clinic. They're a little bit more like keyboard heavy, and it's mostly like people who are in cybersecurity, PhD programs and things like that. But students get a lot from this. Like they get cybersecurity certifications, they conduct site visits and like really get to know like the owners of these businesses. To understand their cybersecurity problems. And this is one of the clients that they helped was a native Guam restaurant called Red Rice. It's a family-run business, and this student, Christian, basically was like in the entrepreneurship at UNLV, heard about these services, knew that his parents had never thought about like the cybersecurity vulnerabilities in their business. Reached out to the clinic, and they identified a lot of vulnerabilities in the POS system and kind of walked them through how to close those vulnerabilities and gave them like cybersecurity tailored education. And what I love about this clinic is that the students are so involved. Like they've created like an internal portal that helps students track their hours. They've developed their own cybersecurity trainings that like they make for the people who are part of the club. They have a podcast. They're amazing. And this is the last clinic I'll show you. This is at Indiana University. This clinic focuses on helping organizations that are a part of like critical infrastructure in the Midwest bolster their cybersecurity. So they focus on like towns, counties, cities, and some of the students focused on helping the fire department local to their school. This was interesting because basically, the fire department was interested in like understanding like what do we do if our communication systems fail, and that can have an impact on their ability to quickly get to to dispatch to a fire. Minutes really matter for their work, so basically the team helped them develop like a comprehensive plan for communication when systems fail, to like implement multiple backups of the dispatch tracking system. And they conducted like a risk assessment of all of the different, all of the departments' like systems and who has access, because this was something the fire department like never thought about before. So, sorry, I'm talking very fast. These university-based clinics are a part of a larger network, as I said before, known as the consortium. So all of these clinics meet online monthly, and they talk about what they're doing, how they develop their curriculum. They talk about how do you find clients? Like, how do you get people, how do you like build trust and like actually find the organizations in the community to like, one, care about this issue, and then two, be that vulnerable to like share all of this information with people who are learning. So it's a great movement, and it's really growing. Over the past 5 years, it's grown to encompass 15 different clinic locations across 9 different states. We're hoping to have 20 clinics by 2025, and the ultimate goal is to have a clinic in every single state. Notably, there is no clinic in Washington State. I think that the communities here would definitely benefit from having a clinic, and definitely the students as well. And who are these clinics helping? Every different clinic has a different focus and helps different people. Largely, like over half of who we help are nonprofits, but we also help local government, local schools, healthcare organizations, and small businesses. And 880 students have benefited from this program nationwide. It's growing exponentially. We trained 150% more students. Like, we bumped up our participation by 150% last year, which was huge for us. It's also super exciting because clinics are expanding internationally. So Google gave us a large grant gave different clinics a large grant to launch clinics at European universities that are like doing the same thing in like the native language of the countries. So it's growing internationally too, which is very exciting. So to take it a step further, the leaders, the academics that are leading these clinics are kind of taking it a step further, because now they have a really good like data set and understanding of like the problems that these public interest organizations are struggling with. And they want to kind of take it into the policy realm so that at the government level, we can get them more resources that like actually address their needs so that they can improve their cybersecurity posture. So I'm going to highlight to you just 2 different kinds of research initiatives that are happening from the academics leading the clinics. So for the clinic that was helping the fire department, Indiana University, they now are, since they focus on like counties and cities and towns, they have decided to do cybersecurity assessments for basically like cities, counties, and towns all across the state. So they basically have developed like they conduct like interviews. They also have developed like a questionnaire that is very comprehensive, and they spend about 30 hours kind of developing a report that's tailored to like what are the cybersecurity vulnerabilities of that specific city or town. And they are now doing that they're trying to do over 300 by 2026. And what that enables them to do is to basically like identify trends across all these different organizations, to understand what the vulnerabilities are and like what government can do in terms of funding, in terms of like mandating different cybersecurity requirements. It kind of gives them a high level overview of where are the gaps, especially for like cities and towns often don't have a ton of tech talent there, and don't have a lot of knowledge of why this is important. They're very analog oftentimes, so definitely is a helpful thing. And then at UC Berkeley, we launched a project called CyberCan, Cybersecurity for Cities and Nonprofits. Basically, since we focus on nonprofits at UC Berkeley, we were curious about like what are the problems that nonprofits in San Francisco, what are they struggling with? So we hosted a workshop and invited these nonprofits to come, and we asked them like what kinds of like what are your experiences? Like, what are you struggling with? Do you think about cybersecurity? And we were really surprised to see that many of them like are victims. It's always very financially devastating for them. They like, especially like with gift card scams, phishing scams, very basic stuff. But they came to this meeting saying like, we can't invest in cybersecurity. Also, we found out through those conversations that with city grants, they cannot use city grants to pay for cybersecurity. So that was kind of really interesting to the city, and we're like, oh, like we should learn more. So we worked with the city to develop a survey to ask them like, why, like, first of all, like what incidents are you experiencing? What would be helpful? And some people say funding, but other people say like, just like an IT helpline would be helpful, or hands-on cybersecurity like consulting services, kind of like what's offered at the clinics. Things like that, and to understand their preferences so that the city, and we're gonna help the city create a report so that they understand how to like allocate different resources and how to change their policies to assist. So that was a mouthful, but I wanna kind of bring it back to like, why does this matter for like industry professionals such as yourselves? Like, what can you do to help public interest cybersecurity? How can you help the cybersecurity clinics? I understand that many of you work at companies and that have employee giving programs where you're able to give your time, or you're able to like get a match for funds donated, or you're able to donate equipment. I would just say that the cybersecurity clinics are really unique because you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. You can help train up the next generation of cyber civil defenders. You can also help the organizations in your community that are struggling. So one way that you can support kind of the growth of clinics is reaching out to your alma maters and asking like, why don't you have a cybersecurity clinic? Maybe also reaching out to your old mentors in the cybersecurity like programs that you guys receive training in to ask if they would be interested in maybe starting one up. If you're interested also in like teaching, I know that at some of these organizations, or sorry, at some of these clinics, while it often is faculty-led or student-led, having industry professionals like help teach the course or come and like give their expertise and kind of like share with the students is an option. So there are a lot of opportunities here for you guys to get involved if you're interested. And if you're thinking about like monetary donations, the consortium has received a lot of generous support from the likes of Craig Newmark, through Craig Newmark Philanthropies, like the founder of Craigslist, as well as Google, that has enabled us to fund the creation and the expansion of clinics across the country. And I'm super happy to talk with anybody else who is interested in learning more about that and how you can give or how you can give your time. But I really appreciate your attention today, and I'm super willing to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you.
So this is something I've always wanted to do, just volunteer my time, but every employee or every employer I've ever worked for has almost a very restrictive, I guess to protect their intellectual property, about what I can do outside of work. Have you run into that where people want to volunteer but they can't because their company claims no, you can't do anything technical outside of work because we're terrified? And if you have strategies around that, because that's something I've run into for years across multiple employers.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that this might operate as like a workaround because you're helping students be able to volunteer. There's, at least for the cybersecurity clinics, if you're not it's usually for students to do the volunteering, but if you're teaching a course, that might be a way for you to kind of make the argument of like, I'm not really doing anything hands-on. I'm just managing the relationship between the client and the students are doing the work, not me. And then you're just kind of like evaluating what the students did. So that might be like a helpful workaround for you with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of add on to this, I think there's some bills being passed that are going to get rid of non-competes for private organizations. So if you work for a company and you're not at the executive level, I think the requirements are, to be executive, you got to get paid more than 150 and actually a policy maker. If you don't fit within having those two requirements, then organizations are not allowed to push a non-compete to you. So it might get better this year.
Hopefully.
How do you manage liability?
Liability?
I guess that's if something's not taken care of as it should have been taken care of the first time, or if you actually introduce more vulnerabilities into the environment, how is that being managed?
Yeah. It depends on the framework of the different clinics. So like at UC Berkeley's, it's more of we aren't really implementing anything on their behalf. We're producing like a big report of recommendations that the organization can decide whether or not to implement. In terms of like creating new vulnerabilities by suggesting solutions, a lot of these clinics are like, I guess for like quality assurance purposes, like are run by cybersecurity professors that are helping students kind of think about the potential implications of what they're suggesting. It's not just a student being like, I think this is a good idea, putting it into paper. It's like it goes through a lot of different revisions and a lot of different like approval processes. I'm sure that it's not foolproof, but that is kind of our process for ensuring that liability, like we aren't making things worse, I guess.
Thank you so much. I'm that jerk that's going to interrupt your questions because I want to make sure that I don't get in trouble by keeping this thing running. So, Shannon, amazing talk. Whew.